What's up, everybody? Harrison Brown-Russo here. Today we're looking at some of the top undrafted free agents in this year's NFL draft class. Let's start it out with a quarterback who had a first-round grade for a large portion of the draft process. That's Carson Strong out of Nevada. Strong has prototypical size and strength for the quarterback position in the NFL with great touch on his deep ball like you're seeing in these clips. Carson Strong really has all the intangibles to be an NFL quarterback. There were some concerns on his knee, the health of that during the draft process. But if this is a guy that can stay healthy, he certainly has upside in the NFL to be a successful quarterback. He joins a quarterback room with Jalen Hurts, who's locked in as the Eagles starting quarterback. I think he's going to have a big year this year. But don't count out Carson Strong to have a nice NFL career somewhere down the line. I think Carson Strong has all the makeup to be a good NFL quarterback.
For the Buffalo Bills, we're going to look at Prince Emili, a real nice run-stuffing defensive tackle out of the University of Pennsylvania. I spoke with Penn's head coach Ray Priori a few months back before the draft process, talked to him about what a team would be getting in Prince Emili. Let's see what Coach Priori has to say.
Yeah, I think first off, it all starts with work ethic. Okay, I think he is a tremendous worker. He does not stop. I think he's someone who's because of how hard he works, and then brings in the leadership component of it. Yes, his numbers were very impressive. Then when he did his pro day coming through, and so we're real excited about what that next level will take from him. And obviously, it's NFL is a whole nother level, but I think he's up to the task, and he's trained extremely hard to get to this point. So I would just say you're going to get a person that's going to give everything he has, and extremely talented.
Next up, we've got Arron Mosby, a versatile defender from Fresno State. He's really fun to watch when you throw in that Fresno State film. This is a guy with great get-off. He can absolutely explode off the ball, beat offensive linemen, offensive tackles on that outside. He also plays with active hands. He's a bit of a nightmare matchup for some of these tackles. Definitely was in the Mountain West Conference, at least. He's a guy who's going to contribute in the run game, beating guys inside or beat you outside with that speed pass rush.
Bengals added another talented pass catcher with Kwamie Lassiter out of Kansas. Sure-handed, quick route runner. Gets in and out of his breaks. Really talented guy. Impressed me down at the Hula Bowl. He was the talk of the town down there. Definitely one of the top receivers in that All-Star game. Played pretty well at Kansas. Obviously, they've had their struggles over the years, but he was a dynamic playmaker for not only their offense, but their special teams as well. Averaged about 13 yards a punt return, and that could be where he gets in with the Bengals. That job is open down in Cincy. They don't have a punt returner, proven punt returner on the roster, I should say. And Kwamie Lassiter could be that guy for them with that 4.5 speed in the 40, and just his ability overall.
So let's start it out with Mike Harley, Miami's all-time leader in receptions. That says something right there with the program that they have. This is a reliable slot receiver, a possession guy who's going to go out there and make those catches for you. The Browns had a lot of success with Rashard Higgins over the years. I could see Harley being similar to that. Just a real reliable pass catcher who can go out there and make plays for the Browns in that offense. Moving on to Travell Harris, real explosive home run threat out of Washington State. A guy who had a real nice touchdown in the Hula Bowl, caught it from Anthony Brown. Just a talented guy, a playmaker, could make some plays on special teams. He's a guy who could be fun to watch in August. And then we'll wrap it up with Isiah Weston, a little bit different than those two other guys. This is a guy who's bigger, sending in that 6'3", 6'4" range. But he's a home run threat as well. He'll go and win out there from northern Iowa. Obviously playing that FCS competition, how will he translate to the next level? But we've seen some other guys do it. I'm real intrigued to see what Isiah Weston does.
Down in Dallas, let's look at Aaron Hansford, a linebacker out of Texas A&M. They kept him in state. Led the Aggies last year with 89 tackles. Wound up moving a linebacker from tight end, I believe 2 or 3 years ago. So, he's still transitioning to that position, still learning it. But his athleticism, his intangibles, his traits are off the charts. Dallas definitely sees that this could be a really interesting middle linebacker. A nice pairing for what they have with Micah Parsons, who's obviously that big, bruising, versatile guy who can play all over the field. Hansford's a really nice athlete who can play in space and also step up in the run game. I really like the way he tackles. Obviously led the Aggies in tackling, but when you throw in that film, he's a sound tackler. He's wrapping up and making plays. I think Aaron Hansford could be interesting for the Cowboys. Also got to shout out Markquese Bell. I've been reading that he's been having a nice camp. Safety out of Florida A&M, so it'll be interesting to see. Dallas might have 2 interesting undrafted defensive players right there.
Alabama outside linebacker, edge rusher Christopher Allen. Allen led the entire SEC in 2022 with 13 tackles for loss, but in 2021 he suffered a broken foot on a strip sack of Miami quarterback D'Eriq King in week 1, so that derailed his entire season. He wound up not playing again. Came out for this year's draft anyway. Still was an interesting edge rusher. I mean, obviously, anytime you lead the SEC in tackles for loss,
teams are going to be interested. Wound up going undrafted, but the Broncos like him a lot. I think he could play really interesting there in preseason training camp area. He's an explosive edge rusher who's really strong at the point of attack. This is a guy who's going to beat by those offensive tackles. He did it in the SEC. I could see it translating to the NFL because of his good hand usage and the fact that he bends the edge as well. He's a really talented pass rusher. He's a prototype edge rusher, outside linebacker hybrid. I'm interested to see what he does in camp.
Our next quarterback is E.J. Perry from Brown, the Andover, Massachusetts native, transferred to Brown from Boston College. Played with his uncle James Perry, who's Brown's head coach. I like EJ a lot. He's a real athletic guy, but he's got a great arm as well. Don't let anybody tell you differently. You can see it right here. He can throw the ball on the move, put it right on the money. I like EJ Perry a lot. He's going down to Jacksonville, working with Doug Peterson, joining that quarterback room with Trevor Lawrence. C.J. Beathard is down there. They've got some other guys as well, but I could see EJ making the 53 with his athleticism, his arm, his football IQ. I definitely think EJ Perry is going to have a nice pro career.
One of the top undrafted free agents in the class, Justyn Ross, a receiver from Clemson, is joining Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Ross was a really talented guy early in his Clemson career, had some first-round potential when he was playing with Trevor Lawrence on that national championship team, but had a really serious spinal injury that cost him the whole 2020 season. Just great to see him back on the field and healthy in general, but Ross was productive in 2021 when he returned to the field from that injury. He led Clemson in receiving last year, even with the quarterback change. It was kind of surprising to see him go undrafted. Definitely think that's a guy that somebody should have took a flyer on. But the Chiefs were smart to go and grab him. They're obviously going through a transition of their own at receiver. I like that group as a whole, though. But looking at Ross in particular, he was a guy who was utilized on a lot of quick screens, a lot of quick hitches at Clemson's offense because he has reliable, strong hands, and he's shifty in the open field and in his routes. So this is a guy with good body control and a great first step off the line of scrimmage. I think that his release is going to really translate to the NFL and give some DBs some problems. And he's also a guy who can go up and get the ball in the air. Like I mentioned, he was a playmaker as a true freshman, so I could see him making plays this preseason, maybe this regular season.
Let's start out with a linebacker out of Nebraska, Jojo Domann. I saw reports that he's already seeing time with the first team group in OTAs. That doesn't surprise me watching his Nebraska film. Hard-hitting linebacker, constantly around the ball. This is a guy who forces a lot of fumbles. I was really impressed with that, how much he puts the ball on the ground from ball carriers. This is a former safety as well. He converted to linebacker from safety. Spent a lot of time covering the slot at Nebraska. We'll see if that translates to the NFL. Obviously, it's a different world covering the slot in the NFL, but just the fact that he has the ability to do that in such a big conference, playing at Nebraska in college football, that intrigues you for what he can do coverage-wise from the linebacker spot for the Colts. Heading down to Detroit, a team that I think will improve this year. Let's look at Josh Johnson, a receiver out of Tulsa. Guy who really impressed me. I was higher on him than a lot of people in the draft process. He was just higher on my board for some reason. Really caught my eye. Guy who gets open, just finds a way to get open. If you throw on that Tulsa film, you're going to see him catching the football a lot. They threw the ball to him a lot. He was a high-volume guy there. Really had a nice career at Tulsa. Really made some nice plays. Was one of the few receivers who benched at the combine. Not that that really means anything, but I just kind of like to see that, man. That means you like football. You really want to go out there and impress. You're trying to go the extra mile to show those scouts, like, listen, man, I'm a receiver. I get it. I'm not going to be out here strong and mauling people, but, you know, I could throw up 225. I could bench. I'm going to show you guys that I could be respectable on it at least. And I think he did put up some good numbers as well. I'm going to have to look at that after this. But, yeah, I like Josh Johnson for the Lions. Let's look at Leddie Brown, running back from West Virginia, who started his high school football career down in Delaware before finishing up in Philly. You just saw it in this clip, breakaway speed. But what I like about Leddie is the way he runs behind his pads. This is a physical runner who's a mean, nasty guy. Works real well in the red zone. You're going to start to see these clips. 13 touchdowns last year down in Morgantown. Tough to stop as a defender. You're going to need 2 or 3 guys to come in there and make a tackle against him. It'll be interesting to see how he translates to the next level. He's going to be someone that I watch in the preseason. Chargers picked up a few other backs. They picked up Kevin Marks from Buffalo, who's another physical guy that I like, was down at the Hula Bowl. So interested to see how they work out their rotations. But I like the way Leddie Brown plays, real physical runner. Think he's got a lot of upside for the next level.
The defending champs, the LA Rams, they picked up Keir Thomas, defensive end out of Florida State. Really productive season opposite of Jermaine Johnson, the Jets' first-round pick out of Florida State. Man, he jumps out as a pass rusher. I think he could be a really underrated signing for them. Might translate to that edge, outside linebacker role. I could see that at his size. But what I really like about him, explosive get-off, splits double teams well, and he's got a relentless motor. Christopher Owens, versatile offensive lineman out of Alabama. You're seeing him play right tackle in these clips, but he spent significant time at center and guard as well. Looks like he'll translate to that interior offensive line spot in the NFL, but a really good offensive lineman nonetheless. He does a really good job washing pass rushers inside. He has a high football IQ. He does a nice job passing off and picking up blitzes, switching off with his interior offensive lineman and his offensive lineman counterparts. Does a really good job sitting down on pass rushers. That's what I really like about Christopher Owens. Does a nice job meeting pressure with pressure on bull rushes. Packs a really concise, powerful punch, not overdrawn, not shooting from the hips. Concise, powerful punch, keeps it in tight. I like Christopher Owens' game. I think that the versatility is going to be big for him. Anytime you can be a guy who can play center, that's nice. That's very valuable to have for offensive linemen with smaller roster sizes. I think Christopher Owens is going to have a nice little NFL career before he's an NFL general manager at some point. All right, boom. Let's go from a big school in Alabama to a smaller school down at Mercer University. Just as interesting of an interior offensive lineman, though, Jason Poe. Guy with outstanding athletic ability for 300-plus pounds. He's an explosive offensive lineman. You guys see it on these clips. I mean, he can deliver some huge finishes, some highlight reel pancake blocks. That caught my eye. Here's what else caught my eye. He's got fullback versatility, according to himself on his highlights. Haven't seen it in a game, but you guys, I mean, look, I'm seeing it right here. He looks pretty smooth running these routes, catching these balls. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy and say he's the next Kyle Juszczyk. He did sign with the San Francisco 49ers, though. Kyle Shanahan's, been known to do some interesting things offensively. Trey Lance is taking over this year. Maybe they could get Jason Poe in some interesting stuff, maybe some preseason stuff. Look, nonetheless, I think he's an interesting interior offensive lineman. He's another guy who can play center here, seeing that as well. Can snap the ball, can play on the inside at guard. It could be interesting on special teams. I mean, with his athleticism, his explosiveness, maybe he could help block on kickoffs. The sky's the limit for Jason Poe. Let's see how interesting they want to get with him, and let's see if he can be a stout offensive lineman first and make the roster that way. So if Mercer wasn't a small enough school for you, we go from Bama to Mercer to the Division III ranks, Framingham State, to look at defensive end, edge rusher Josh Onujiogu. Interesting prospect nonetheless. I'm not going to argue with you guys about the level of competition. I hear you. He's going to crush these offensive tackles on all these clips. Some of these quarterbacks are going to get absolutely lit up. But what I will say about Josh is he flashed professional traits and qualities, nonetheless against a lower level of competition. But his get-off, his arsenal of pass rushing moves, these are a professional set of traits. The Seattle Seahawks signed him. They've been known to sign some lower, under-the-radar guys. I like it for them, I think Josh Onujiogu could be an interesting preseason guy to watch. It's going to be a huge jump to go from Framingham State and the level of play up in Mass to the NFL. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it just is what it is. But I will nonetheless be definitely rooting for him. I think, Framingham State has a good program up there. I actually have heard of them. Josh performed well at Holy Cross's Pro Day as well, put up some good numbers there. That's really what caught a lot of scouts' eye, seeing that he tested very well as well. So shout out to Josh, man. Wish him all the best going from that Division III to the NFL ranks. We love to see it. Tom Brady and the Bucs added another playmaker in Utah State receiver Deven Thompkins. Deven Thompkins has outstanding speed and quickness. He's a slot receiver who's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. Every route he runs could be a touchdown. He's a guy who's undersized, obviously, about 5'7", 5'8" range, but plays big. He's a guy who has the ability to go up and high point the ball on jump balls, and he played in a really pass-heavy offense that played with tempo. I think that's going to be good for him translating to the NFL. Obviously, playing in Tom Brady's offense is never going to be easy. We always hear about how tough it is for rookies, but Deven Thompkins has that natural athleticism and explosiveness that, hey, if you can get him on the field and kind of help him understand what's going on with the Bucs and their offense, I think Thompkins could be a huge playmaker for them. And so does head coach Todd Bowles. Bowles said, I would love to see what Thompkins does in training camp. He's quick, he's fast, he's explosive off the ball, and he's made some good catches. I'll be looking at him. I certainly will as well, Coach Bowles. So make sure you guys are keeping your eye on Deven Thompkins. I really like Haskell Garett, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State, joining Mike Vrabel in the Tennessee Titans. I think he's a Mike Vrabel guy. Quick burst of power, really strong bull rush that can put interior offensive linemen on their heels, and strong hands that can chop away an offensive lineman from his pads. You guys are going to see here in a few seconds. I was really impressed with him at the Senior Bowl. I thought that he looked great in some of the one-on-one drills. Intrigued to see what he can do in that Tennessee defense. They've had a good defense since Mike Vrabel's been there. I expect nothing less, and I think Haskell Garett could be a part of that moving forward.
For the Washington Commanders, we've got Kelley, a quarterback out of southeastern Louisiana. This is a guy whose stature is obviously going to jump off the charts at 6'7", 248 pounds. But what I really like about Kelley is his arm talent. This is a guy who's got the ability to make any throw on the field. He can hit that throw on the outside. He's also a functional athlete for his size. Like I said, 248, that's not a small guy right there. He still can move. He can jump over guys, as you're seeing in some of these highlights. This is a guy who won the Walter Payton Award at Southeastern Louisiana. That's like the Heisman Trophy for FCS. He's also a guy who played in the SEC at Arkansas, so he's a guy I'm looking forward to watching in Commanders camp.